Happy New Year to everyone out there, guys. It is even better news than Christmas. That's right. It is football Christmas. The January transfer window is officially open. And obviously, we can now register Fabio Silva and hopefully we'll bring in a few more players because, as we've all said, we think that this window is absolutely key for the rest of the season. I think for both sides of Glasgow, in particular for us, there are a number of players I think we do need to acquire, a number of positions we do need to fill. Obviously, chief amongst them being a striker. That is a definite must. Yes, I know Fabio Silva has arrived from Wolves. Fabio Silva obviously can play in the 10. He can play as a 9. He can also play as a left wing forward and right wing forward as well. But I still think a clinical striker is something we definitely need. Now, we are in this video going to talk a little bit about January targets. There is a number of names swishing around. Also, what Philippe Clement had to say as regards those names that are currently swishing around the city of Glasgow, the Scottish media, the British media, and the internet media as well. We'll obviously touch a little bit on the continued SFA story around the releasing of the audio. Obviously released a video last night talking about that, which is phenomenally received, guys. Thank you so much for your amazing support on that one. We've also got some news about Abdallah Sima and his possible move to Rangers and what it could end up costing Rangers if that move was to go through. We'll obviously talk a little bit at the end of the video as well about the plans for the channel for the new year. And obviously, like I keep telling you, as always, this channel is 100% free, guys. We don't hide our content behind a paywall. We're not a Patreon channel. I personally hate Patreon. Wouldn't do it. I honestly think that you should not hide your content behind a paywall for fans. Fans should be able to access content on their team for free. Right, so let's talk a little bit, obviously, about, first of all, the January transfer window, which is now firmly open. We will touch on the SFA story shortly as well. But as we know, as the window opens, there are going to be a whole host of names linked with a move to Rangers. Now, Philippe Clement, post Old Firm game, was asked as regards the January transfer window. And he once again did his classic Philippe Clement thing of playing his cards exceptionally close to his chest. As we know, Philippe is very, very famous for giving away absolutely nothing in terms of said news and said contracts. So he said, he talked about the fact that Fabio Silva is going to be a very important player. And we certainly hope that Fabio comes in, hits the ground running and is able to do a job for us. I think the fact that he has played in British football in terms of playing for Wolverhampton Wanderers and playing, over 80 games for them will stand him in good stead in terms of coping with the physicality, the speed and the intensity of Scottish football. As we know, English football is very similar to that. So that is good news. Now, it was also revealed yesterday that Fabio Silva, that Wolves will pick up the vast majority of Fabio Silva's wages. Now, I know this is going to cause a great deal of laughing and hilarity on the other side of the city and a continuing of this Skint FC, you've got no money, blah, blah, blah bullshit they come out with all the time. You know what? It's classic, isn't it? Their obsession with us is genuinely real. It's quite funny, really. And the amount of comments I had to delete from the video. And look, if a Celtic fan comes on and wants to genuinely debate something and actually have a reasoned debate, then that's fine. But all the comments were abusive. All the comments were ridiculous. There was personal insults. I mean, there's one from a guy who's got a picture of himself and his young daughter as his picture. Yet his abuse was ridiculous. I mean, his daughter must be ashamed of him. But look, let's get back to this story. Fabio Silva obviously has joined. It was confirmed on the 28th of December. He is now officially a Rangers player on loan with Rangers to the end of the season. Wolves, of course, confirmed that there was no option to buy in the contract. But I very much doubt that, given the fact that a lot of Wolves fans have said, and I've listened to Wolves podcasts who've talked about Fabio Silva, and I've contacted a couple of them as well, and not only have they said that they do feel that Fabio will be a success here, that he's very direct, he knows where to run, he's got a good eye for shots, etc., and they feel he will be a success in Scotland. But they talked about the fact that if he was going to be sold at any point, Wolves would want to recoup a large part of that transfer fee they paid for him. And I think we all know and we all admit there's absolutely zero chance anyone in Scotland, and I include that bunch of scumbags from across the city, could afford to pay £35 million or close to that figure for him. Now, according to a number of sources, the wages that Fabio Silva is on is around £80,000 per week. That is his weekly weekly take home. So, 80 grand a week, it's very doubtful that Rangers could afford to pay anyone 80 grand a week at this moment in time. I very much doubt that even that lot across the city with their European money that they get could afford to pay anyone 80 grand a week. This is a deal that was negotiated by a Premier League team. And as we all know, Premier League teams are absolutely swimming in cash, even those teams down the bottom of the league are the slightly smaller teams. Not that I'm calling Wolves a smaller team, because they are a big team in England. But it is emerged today that he will be, the vast majority of those wages will be picked up by Wolverhampton Wanderers. They are hoping that a move up north of the border will reignite his career, and that Philippe Clement can get a tune out of him and start this young lad on the road to being the player that Wolves hoped he would be when they paid 35 million for him to secure his services from Porto. That very much seems to be the reason for it, that it is very much a loan to get the guy going, and hopefully then, when he goes back to Wolves for next season, that the Wolves are getting back a player. That is the expectation. That is the hope. Now, the other rumours that are going around, obviously, the reports, sorry, not rumours. I don't know those words, rumours. They're horrible, horrible, horrible. Makes it sound like a clickbait. It's not a clickbait. Are regarding Abdallah Sima. Now, according to reports coming out of Brighton and Hove Albion, and again, I've talked to people who are Brighton Hove Albion podcasters, who talk to the club and things like that. And they've said that there is, a lot of truth in this report. Now, according to the reports that are coming out of Brighton, Brighton are willing to part company with Abdallah Sima at the end of this season. Apparently, Brighton are exceptionally happy with the work that's been done with him with Rangers, and that he has made improvements. Now, unfortunately, he seems to me, he has done very well this season. He's played exceptionally well. He scored goals, 14 goals this season. And, the goals that he scored have certainly been of top quality, and he has an eye for goal. And you do back him when he gets through on goal to actually take a chance. However, the one downside I would say with Abdallah Sima to some degree is he does seem to blow a little bit hot and cold. He has spells where he is unplayable and certainly looks exceptional and takes all his chances. Yet there are other times, like in recent weeks, the last couple of weeks, where he hasn't played as well. The Celtic game, the Motherwell game, he certainly didn't look the player he has done previously, and that's worrying, especially if you're going to invest a large sum of money in Abdallah Sima. Now, according to the reports that are coming out of Brighton are seeking to get somewhere in the region of 10 to 15 million pounds for Abdallah Sima. That is according to reports, 10 to 15 million. Now, even at the bottom end of that sum, 10 million pounds, that is an awful lot of money. Then at this moment in time, given where the club are in terms of finances, given where the club are in wanting to develop this player trading model, you would kind of, I don't know, to me, 10 million would be a bit too much to pay at this point in time. We obviously didn't have the Champions League this season. We are getting money from the Europa League. We could generate money through player sales, but investing 10 million in one player would be a substantial investment. And yes, I do think that Abdallah Sima, if he carries on the way he's doing it in 2-3 years' time, you could probably sell him for 15, 20, 25 million pounds. He is that good. But would the club be willing initially to outlay 10 million pounds or even more on him? Would it even be a case of a 10 million initial fee rising to 15, depending on certain criteria being met? And there's also, I think, a strong likelihood that Brighton would want a sell-on clause put into that contract, which then would obviously reduce the profit that Rangers would make on the player. Personally, I think, like the reports that were coming out earlier in December about a 7 million release fee, I think that would be more realistic. I genuinely cannot see Rangers paying 10 million, and certainly anything north of 10 million for Abdallah Sima, which would be a sad shame, because the guy is a good player. We know that he is a very talented player, but I suppose you've got to weigh up that in terms of the fact that, is 10 million a sound investment in one person? Is it too many eggs in one basket? Could you therefore, I'd say, 2 5 million pound players and bring them in, and they would have probably the same sort of impact? That is the question that needs to be asked. But it does seem to me that the higher the fee goes, and one of the other reports coming out is the fact that if he continues to play well and particularly impress in the Europa League, it will force his transfer fee up. And obviously, the better he does in the Europa League will attract more clubs, not only from Britain, not only from the English league, not only from Scotland, but also as well from across the continent, from French clubs to Spanish clubs to Portuguese clubs, who may be more willing to pay up to £15 million for him or more, depending on how he gets over on in the Europa League. Now, we talked yesterday's video, didn't we, a little bit about Milan Manhoef, which I still think is an absolutely amazing name. There are strong rumours, and again, these are just rumours coming out of Holland as regards this deal, that it is a done deal, apparently, and that he will, once the January transfer window officially opens, which is obviously today, be at some point transferred to Rangers for around £3.5 million. That is the rumour that is currently very strong in Holland. That has been reported by a number of Dutch sports newspapers. Where the continent is famous, isn't it, for its sports newspapers? Certainly something we don't have here. And it does seem that in Holland, it has been very strongly reported that Manhoef is on the verge of joining Rangers. I mean, if that is true, I certainly think that would be a very good move. He's a very promising young player. He plays for the Dutch under-21s. He is talented. He is certainly someone who would fit that player trading model. He's no doubt probably going to be someone that has been scouted by Niels Koppen, given the close proximity, obviously, of Eindhoven, seeing Vitesse Arnhem play. The fact that he's played first-team football for Vitesse Arnhem, I've got very little doubt that Niels Koppen will have seen this young man play. So, and he certainly plays in a position of need for Rangers. We do need wingers. Abdallah Sima obviously will disappear off from January until mid-February for the African Cup of Nations. Rabbi Matondo has not returned in the same form that he did previously. Neither has Scott Wright. Ross McCausland is a young player who, is up and coming, but still has an awful lot to learn. And I think the criticism of him on social media, particularly on X over the weekend, was very unjust indeed. The fact that he is, and people say, well, he's 20 years old now. He's not really a young player. He still is a young player in terms of his experience. He's still learning the game. And yes, he has a lot to learn. He still needs to learn about tracking back, about supporting his fullback, about defending. That is an area of his game he still needs to work on, and we understand that. But certainly bringing in someone like Milan Manhoef would give us an extra option out there, out wide. So that's certainly a name that has been linked. So, the names just keep on coming, don't they? The fact that players are going to be linked. And I think, as the month of January progresses, there is, I think, given the fact that we lost the Old Firm game, given the fact that I think there is a real lack of quality in that front four, that to really break down teams and take chances, the clinicalness of this team is sadly lacking, and that is where we are being held back. I think if we'd had that clinical striker against that lot from across the city, we would have won that game on Saturday. And I think the same is, in other games, we could have probably scored more goals had we had somebody more clinical up front. I mean, the answer, Cyril Dessers is not the answer. If he's the answer, what the hell is the question? Is definitely one we need to talk about. Dessers is certainly not a starter. He's certainly not good enough to be a starter. He misses too many easy chances. We saw that against Motherwell. And as for that chance against Celtic, I really don't want to talk about it anymore. It was absolutely garbage, absolute garbage. Although it does appear that on some channels, you cannot criticise Cyril Dessers or say anything nasty about our players. There we go. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about another possible target. That is Romanian player Darius Oloru. Now, he was a player who was linked with a move to Rangers in the summer, but it appears he's still a player very much on Rangers' radar. He is a Romanian international. He was the Romanian top flight player of the year in 2022. However, he is 25, which obviously would still fit your player trading model. He is a playmaker, seen as kind of been at times called the Romanian Kevin De Bruyne, which certainly is very high praise indeed. However, it appears that that his form this season has been very, very questionable. The stories in the Romanian media and from Romanian players are that his performance has, in their words, been very cold since the beginning of the season. In terms of performance, it's been cool since the beginning of the championship. I mean, let's be fair. I always appreciate the runs that he makes. I said maybe, and thanks to him, that is his coach talking. He compensates with his runs. He helps out the defense. I appreciate these things, but he is being extremely ineffective at this moment. It does seem that he has failed to build on his 6 goals, 12 assists from last term. He's only got 1 and 6 this season. So his contract is only got 15 months left to run on his contract, and his market value is 5 million. But again, he's someone who, like I said, was linked in the summer. He's someone that, again, appears to be on the radar, particularly given the fact that Tom Lawrence is injured, that it does appear that Yanis Hadji won't return. Alex Lowry is still on loan at Hearts and could be part of a make-weight for Lawrence Shankland. Todd Cantwell has been blowing hot and cold this season, has certainly not had the season that he had after January, post-January last year, and was very ineffective in the Old Firm game. So again, another name that has been linked. And I would pour cold water on that one. I think that is it. That was one for the summer. I don't think that, given his form at the moment, he'll be someone that we will go for. I just can't see him being a realistic option at this moment in time. A left back does seem to be another option that we talk about. That the name Kai Wagner refuses to go away. That is another one, currently in the MLS with Philadelphia Union, has decent figures and stats for Philadelphia this season. I've expressed my concerns about him in terms of the fact that he's 26 years old. He's not got a lot of resale value. His previous experiences with SSV Ulm, Schalke 04, Second 11, Würzburg Kickers, who are a regional German team, before he went to the MLS. And it appears that all that his success has come during his time in MLS football. His stats this season are pretty decent, certainly, but overall, is he the answer? So he seems to be another name that has been continually linked. A marauding fullback, a tough guy, a big guy. Is he a possible? He's another one that has been linked. But as Philippe Clement said, there is a whole host of names, and some of those are very wrong. We don't know who those names are that are very wrong. He didn't give that away during that interview that he gave to the media. So look, it is January the 1st. The window is open. A whole host of names are going to be up. I mean, Lawrence Shankland is the big one. Look, personally, I think whatever it is, pay the money, give him Lowry, get him in. I think having Shankland would actually help us win this league because, like I said, he plays on Saturday. We win that game 3-2 minimum because he scores both those chances that Dessers messes up. He's 10 times the player Dessers is. His chance conversion rate is better than Kyogo's. He is a better player, and he scored against Saturday. He is a quality player, and he's someone that really could benefit Rangers. The talk is that Celtic are also interested in him, willing to bid up to £4 million for him. If he ends up on the other side of the city, I think big questions need to be asked of James Bisgrove and the board as to their ambition for this club for definite. So look, we obviously build up towards Kilmarnock. We'll talk a little bit more about that on our match day news video tomorrow. It will be a very tough game. Kilmarnock are no mugs. They are in good form as well. Derek McInnes has that team exceptionally well organised, and their record against the Old Firm, albeit at Rugby Park this season, has been very good indeed. You look at where they are in the league at the moment. They sit 4th, only 2 points behind Hearts. They're no mugs. They're absolutely no mugs. Yes, they played a game more than Hearts, but they're certainly no mugs. Their last few games that they've played, they drew 2-2 with Dundee on Saturday. They beat St Mirren 1-0 on the Wednesday night. They beat St Johnstone 2-1 the previous Saturday. A 0-0 draw against Livy, a 2-1 victory against Celtic, a 1-0 victory away at Pittodrie. Their last defeat was on the 2nd of December at home against Hearts. So, they're going to come. They're going to be tough to beat, tough to break down. McInnes will have them well organised, and they will be desperate for another Old Firm scalp. It will be absolutely vitally important for me that we get our heads straight back up after that defeat at the weekend. We cannot go into that game feeling sorry for ourselves over decisions that didn't go our way, that penalties that should have been given, etc., etc. We need to be back up and back at them. People talk about the fact that we've got 2 games in hand on that lot from across the city. The 8 points is not a massive gap given the fact we have these 2 games in hand, but we cannot afford to drop any more points to that by giving anything away to Kilmarnock, albeit a draw or even a worst case scenario defeat. This needs to be a team that goes out there and focuses. I think we do need to rotate a little bit. I am in support of that. I will talk a little bit about the team that I would pick tomorrow, but I do think we do need to make some changes, particularly as certain players to me don't look fully fit at this moment in time. Yes, I know Lundstram and Goldson came back for the Old Firm. I think that was necessary given the fact it was the Old Firm, but I don't think they're fully fit. and maybe it's a time to give them a rest before the winter break to make sure they come back after the winter break fully match fit and fully ready to go. Now, we found out obviously yesterday that the SFA have refused to release the VAR audio before the winter break comes around. Now, look, I don't want to talk about whether it's a penalty, whether it was offside, yada, yada, yada. I don't want to talk about that. What I am concerned about is the honesty of the VAR official, Willie Collum. Now, initially, the decision that wasn't given because of the fact that it was perceived that Alistair Johnston's hand was in a natural position. Okay, fine. We can debate that all we want. We're not going to debate that now. That appeared to be the decision that was given, that was the reason the penalty wasn't given. Okay, now, half an hour later, those pictures come out of the offside still, which are inaccurate because of when the offside still was taken. The ball had already left Lundstrom's foot. We can debate that all we want. But why is it that it took 30 minutes for those pictures to come out? And what is telling for me is this. Ian Crocker, who was the match commentator for Sky, and Sky are official broadcast partners of the SFA. Therefore, they have access to the VAR audio. They can hear it. Okay. Now, they said it would have been nice to have known that at the time. Therefore, meaning that no offside check took place during the initial VAR check on the handball. Therefore, meaning that that offside tech check took place at a later time. Why? Was it that Willie Collum watched that back and realised, oh shit, I've made a huge mistake and I need to find some reason? And he went, and like we all do when we've made a mistake, we go back over things and try and find something that's going to absolve us of that. Now, if that is the case, then Willie Collum has lied in what he said, because he said that the reason the penalty was not given was because of the player's hand being in a natural position. Like I said, I'm not debating whether it's a penalty, whether it isn't a penalty, whether it was offside, whether it isn't offside, etc., etc. What I am questioning here is the decision-making process. Now, even Celtic, whose fans have been utterly pathetic over this, must worry that the VAR process is not clear and that match officials are seeking to cover over their mistakes by going back over footage at later times to try and find some excuse why that decision shouldn't have been given. And it's not just Rangers who suffered over the weekend. Hearts suffered as well. Forest went round the goalkeeper. I can't remember who they were playing now. Button was clearly brought down, and the VAR did not give the penalty. And in fact, I think Forest was booked for diving. Again, another awful decision. So the question has to be asked as regards VAR, is it doing its job? The answer to that has to be no. Is it helping referees to make the right decisions? Again, the answer has to be no. But in this case, the question is, has Willie Collum lied about what the decision was? Has he then realized he's made a huge error, gone back and tried to find an excuse as to why he hadn't made an error? If that's the case, then his honesty has to be called into question and his fitness to referee has to be called into question in the future. If he is lying in this situation, he should never be allowed to referee another game again. And there has been precedence for this in the past. Okay, guys, that is pretty much it for the stories for this morning or this afternoon or this evening. Obviously, on New Year's Day, 2024, guys. Can't believe it's 2024 already. We're going into 2024. We have some huge plans for the channel. You will see the fact that we will have lots of guests on here. Laura Hatton, who from TikTok will be on a regular basis on the podcast. I'm hoping also to get Scott McPike, Scott McKay on there, Curry on here as well to talk all things Rangers. Obviously, this is a channel that I love. This is my channel. I love talking here about all things Rangers. The support you've given has been phenomenal, and I hope that you'll be able to help us keep that up. As soon as we reach 5K, there'll be more new things coming online, which hopefully will be soon. We'll also be looking at building a website very shortly as well. Again, that'll be a free website, free to access. We're not going to charge for content at this stage. We're also looking at. I'm also looking at a number of other things. It is just me looking at these things: merchandise, websites, live shows, etc., etc. All as we grow this channel. The only way to make sure that happens is to help us by subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. And as always, on the way out, if you could do me 2 jobs. Number 1, smash the like. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.